No, not even that. We're even dumber than that. I'm going way deep.
It's quite complicated to get working. I know there was a fair amount of skepticism out there. You really gotta earn the belief. The game wasn't built.
Haven't had an opportunity to work on them, but they are in the works.
Refactor them, change things out, retrofit it, refactor them, refactor them. People program things.
This is bullshit.
Heyo, it's me, Virtual Captain. I'm sitting here with three good buddies of mine. We got Dapper Don. We've got Bootcha of Sunk Cost Galaxy fame. And we have the none other than Beet Wagon. What's up, guys? Go ahead and...
Hey, how you doing?
So, we're on episode 4 here. And, Beet, it's been a while.
Yes!
Yeah, it's been a while, and I really love the episode with you. It's so, relaxed and fun, and then we got Bootcha in here, and he's all serious. So, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen today.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of sweet and sour, I think, having both Bootcha and I on, because I suspect he's going to make some really wonderful, elegant points, and I'm going to probably ruin them all.
You're going to be disappointed in me then.
And our new guest here, we've got Dapper. Tell us about yourself. I'm not asking you to go into your whole Star Citizen story, but we might get to that later on.
How you doing? Well, a couple of years ago, I had bought into the game, and as the turn of events have brought me to where I'm sitting at right here talking to you, it has been one of a conversation that we've all had probably a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
I find that no matter what the deal with the game as is in its development right now is, it's not what was sold to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start going down branches of, unjust enrichment and, just all of the bad things that none of us really wanted when we started this.
Absolutely not. I think something that I hear a little bit of echo coming from somebody, so check that out. But I think a lot of Beet has tried to dispel some of this misunderstanding, but the Something Awful Goons, and I've been a Something Awful Goon for a long, long time. We love our space games, and we wanted nothing more than to play this and grief everybody online, the same like we do in EVE Online. And EVE Online is getting quite stale there, so everyone was really, really looking forward to this, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way, did it?
No, I don't think it did in any way.
And I think the sad part, and part of what keeps me interested, is this continuing comedy of errors.
Well,
Yeah.
just on I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to just mockingly say, I'm partially to blame.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's not like you were in the think tank with Chris and company when they were deciding, you know what? We're not really going to do that. We're going to do this over here. And I have all of these other more grandiose plans. No, you weren't part of that.
Yeah, but okay. On the other hand, though, how's this for a thought? Without Bootcha's initial investment, maybe none of this ever happened. Maybe Bootcha's actually to blame for this entire situation.
Hey.
Okay, then we're going back to World
We should
War
save
II
the
to
conspiracy
kill-
theories for second half.
Yeah. We got to save that. No, I'm not going to lay that at his feet. I'm not.
I think there's only one person's feet you can lay that at, if I'm being honest.
Yes, and that's going to be Chris.
Yeah. I was actually going to make a joke there, but no. The reality is it's like you said. I mean, I think the reason any of us are still here and are still talking about this, which is a criticism that I get a lot, and I know that some of you guys do as well. Like, okay, so if you got a refund, if you are not in the game anymore, why the hell are you still spending your time hanging out and talking about it, which, to be fair, is a very good question.
Yeah.
You would think eventually at some point this would get really boring and we would all just leave. And I think for a lot of people it has. If you look at the activity on even the main Star Citizen subreddit, it's dropped fairly significantly from what it was, even a year ago. But I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and you're right, I did for a time try to explain this, but now I just kind of lean into the I'm trying to destroy your game for no reason.
I do get more comedy value out of that answer.
Yeah, it's just funnier that way. But the reality is we're all here because at least most of us at one point were invested, in some cases fairly heavily, into this thing, and it's still an interesting project. I know for me, I just a couple days ago, I was bumping around on the Star Citizen website, and I did have like a little pang of nostalgia, like, God, why couldn't I still just believe in this,
Can you stop right there for a second, Pete?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you why. And it's in a nutshell is you don't ever stop becoming a victim. You were still taken advantage of. That never went away. You may have gotten your money back, but you were still a victim.
I see.
Oh, for sure. I would agree with that 100%. I could list you off.
That pang of nostalgia that you're feeling, that is the effect of abuse.
Yeah.
He dangled what you really wanted, and you gave all that you had to have it when it was never his to give in the beginning.
Yeah, and it's had a follow on. I mean, just like I hesitate to be the guy sitting here going, Chris Roberts abused me, although I agree with you. But it has had a follow on effect in that I could list you off 10 or 12 different Kickstarters since Star Citizen that I've been like, nope, fuck this, I'm out. I'm not doing that shit anymore.
Right.
And I wonder how, when this thing goes all the way, comes crashing all the way down, how many people are going to feel that, and how many people are going to have that kind of that feeling where they no longer trust crowdfunding.
Yeah, I feel like
I don't. I know I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like Star Citizen has definitely mortally wounded or seriously wounded crowdfunding at this point. Not just in the amount of money that he's taken out of the market, but in the sense that the perception of what game developers are capable of and what they promise. And a lot of the buzzwords that Roberts rode on for the last 3-4 years, especially after sort of like the switch from a manageable project to a project without end, in the sense that as long as the money keeps coming in, the project will never end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess not so much in the same sense of sort of like, what's a sale, what's a pledge, what's a promotion. Not in that case, but more in the case of sort of like, procedural generation. Now that kind of has a little bit more of a loaded connotation these days, sort of like, okay, what kind of procedural generation are we talking about? How long is this going to take to implement? What are you going to do? What are you going to fill it in with? And then you start thinking like, well, Star Citizen had procedural plans, but it had nothing to do on them except land in, die in strange and glitchy ways. So, I mean, and then that becomes, well, what else are you doing other than procedural planets? Because that alone isn't enough to get me interested.
Yeah,
I mean,
there was
like Kickstarters are going to struggle with terminology after this.
I was just reading a bunch of Starfield rumors, and without getting into that, I had a moment where I noticed that I was like, I could feel myself physically being like, oh, fuck this game. And it's because there was a rumor of procedural planets. And I was like, no, it can't be. It's never good. It's never once been good.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been that particular piece of technology hasn't quite panned out anywhere near people's imagination, even going so back as Spore, which was an entire procedural game, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But
I feel like that reaction from me was specifically a result of Star Citizen.
Yes, again, it goes back to, this is the game that not only appealed to you, but every one of us that is listening to this right now is, we all wanted to play this game, the one that he pitched to us. This is the product that I will give to you. And, well, yeah, okay, if you're showing me this and you're saying you can do it, all right, then the money is justifiably spent. But however, all this inventing new technology, no, we are not your research and development firm. We gave you this money because we believed you already had the capability to do this. And so the whole concept of, well, they needed time to build a company and studios and technology. No, none of that was part of the Kickstart. It was, give me this money because with this money, I can go ahead and take off and do this product. It was never give me this money, then let me build a company, then let me start on this new technology. No, he came out there and said he was already in this, doing this.
Yeah, I mean, like, to offer a counter argument to that, if I may.
Sure.
So basically, the RSI/CIG/Chris Roberts thing, sort of like, give me money, give us money kind of thing. That was, well, let's see, back then, it was sort of, Martin Galloway was on board, Eric Peterson was on board. We were going to get the Lightbox guys, because their studio just closed down after Warhawk, after that release, and I guess Sony just cut everybody loose. So we were able to secure those guys. So we were going to have a company. We just didn't know how fast that we were going to be able to get it up and going, just because we didn't have an office. We weren't going to buy the Lightbox Studio office because it was pretty expensive, and this was going to be backer money. So in that case, sort of, yes, there was sort of like the beginnings of the company kind of already established, but there was a bit still left to do, especially sort of like getting the office ready to go, and then figuring out what the hell was Chris going to do. Was he going to be in Austin as well, or was he going to be out in LA with Ortwin? And that actually dragged things out a lot more, actually, was Chris Roberts deciding whether or not he wanted to be in LA or in Austin.
Yeah, well, let's, I'm glad you touched on that, and thank you. All right. The biggest thing, and this was one of my biggest personal kerfluffles with giving me the ultimate sign that Chris Roberts has no idea what he's doing, is the fact that, okay, you asked for a small amount and you were given this vast fortune. He has proven himself to be a poor steward of that money by needing to have worldwide offices rather than until he launches a product, consolidating that cash.
Now he's tried
carry
to
him
justify
through.
that with expanding the scope, but to me,
No.
expanding the scope, that's on you.
All right, you guys, listen, I don't think you understand how this works. If they have an office in every time zone, they can continue development for 24 hours a day, unfettered by the needs of sleep or rest. This is basic. This is game dev 101, guys.
Right. Well, let me go ahead and
For
ask
all you
then,
backers out there that don't understand how this works in the real world, I work with an office overseas, and basically how it works is they end up spending 4 hours waiting for the guy who they want to talk to get there, and they just twiddle their thumbs.
Didn't they a while ago, before in the 4 or 5 years it took them to get a Delta patcher working, didn't they say they had to download they had to send the entire thing overseas every day?
Yeah.
Yep, that was in the Spectrum advertisement.
For every build, every time they updated anything, so that they could continue this mystical 24-hour workday, which has never existed, and they've never been able to do, just by the way, for anybody listening, but so that they could continue being as efficient as possible, they had to send over the entire game build every time there was an update.
See, here's the problem. Here's the big problem. All right. Apparently, nobody has ever heard of having multiple shifts in the same building.
Mm-hmm.
So just to expand upon that, if he were to have built himself or purchased some sort of office complex in, say, the worst part of Kansas or somewhere Midwest where the cost of living is next to nothing, and consolidated his cash in a very conservative manner until they launched a product, he'd be sitting on a hell of a lot more money to be able to turn this bus around.
Oh yeah.
But
well,
he hasn't, and he
No.
won't.
No, he can't now. Could you imagine? Could you imagine the outrage? Well, actually, maybe it wouldn't even be that bad. The backers will do anything he wants. But could you imagine? Just hold this moment in your mind for just a second. Chris Roberts comes out and says, "Well, okay, you know what? It turns out we actually really are running out of money, so we're shutting down everything but the Austin studio,
That's what I
and
thought
we're going
was
to
going
do
to happen.
all of the development out of there."
I mean, it would be catastrophic.
It would be chaos.
Even you know what? Even let's just go ahead and take this into the most. If we're going to be a backer and really hope for the best of everything about this project, then the worst would be that. To hear something like, okay, Austin has to close because really we're not doing anything there anyhow, not important. So we're moving, we're going to absorb that. And because Austin is just, that's no good to us. The backers will swallow that. So they've got a little burn time between now and they have to close one of their expensive offices.
Hmm.
Actually, I think the Derby will probably close before Austin.
It's when one of the visually impressive offices that has to shut down, you can bet your bottom dollar that Chris and Co. will have bags packed and be gone before news hits the next business day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In 2017, I thought, okay, they gotta close one. I mean, just going off of napkin math, which doesn't work very good. Just going off of napkin math, I thought, okay, they gotta close an office here in 2017, and lo and behold, they open up a new one in Derby. So
That's the thing everybody forgets, and it is the one thing that I will give Chris Roberts credit for. The one thing, aside from how much he actually does look like a thumb with a turtleneck, the one thing I will give him credit for is Chris and Aaron Roberts are like they're seriously like the Dukes of Hazzard. They just, every time you think like, oh boy, they're in it now. There's no way. How are them Roberts boys gonna get out of this one? They find a stack of hay bales and they just shoot Roberts Space Industries right over it, and the cops all come slamming into the trees, and they've made it for another year. And you're like, how the fuck? There's no way. There's no way. But every time you think that, they find another stack of hay bales to jump off of.
Well, let's see what them Roberts boys up to now.
I'd watch that show. That would be, you know what? Since every time I've been on this particular podcast, I've made a ridiculous, unreasonable demand of Chris Roberts. That's my current one. That's my one right now.
now,
Chris Roberts.
I don't know if he's
Can we
listening
work in?
today, but I think he's gonna come eventually.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
matter.
we
So
know he
it's-
reads the thread, the Something
No,
Awful
so
thread. So.
Eventually, the interns are going to run out of being able to listen to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So better get
So-
it in here in the first
so
15
Chris
minutes. or so.
Roberts-
This
Go
is the
ahead.
highlight of
The first one, as we recall, was "Please sell me some of your blood."
Okay.
This
Still
current one, I'm still waiting on that. This current one is please work. The next time they like cart you out into Around the Verse, or
Oh,
whatever
I like
the
where
fuck
you're
that
going
show
there.
is, please just throw in a Dukes of Hazzard reference, just for me. It doesn't have to be real. It can be real subtle. You don't have to go like, ha, 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 Dukes of Hazzard, right? just work one in there just for me, just so I know.
One of their JPEGs with the General Lee horn sound.
Oh my god, yes. Oh, they put that into Grand Theft Auto Online at some point. and
you know,
it was
you
the best
spoke
thing
about-
they've ever done.
You spoke about every time Chris talks on one of the shows or on stage, you get your slew of refunds. And I wish he would talk more on Reverse the Verse and those things, because those are always the most fun.
He's
And,
the only,
and as
yeah.
Eris and others will say, this is the section that gives them the most belief or faith. I forget exactly how he phrased it.
They've run out of things to say. I mean, there's just only so many of these shows you can stomach to where it's just a regurgitation of the episode prior to the one you just watched. All they do is leapfrog the same nonsense. None of that has anything to do with the game and where it was supposed to be. I'll even go by their generous timeline as of, how about last year? They're nothing close to what 3.0 was pitched during 2016. Nowhere near it.
Now,
This is a catastrophic failure. And you want to sit here and talk to me about procedural this? You can't keep your own timelines. Don't try and tell me you're going to be able to sell me all of this other stuff. You can't finish what's on your plate right now.
Bootcha, I was reviewing some of your Sunk Cost Galaxy videos, and in one of them you talked about you manned the camera. Was that was that for one of the professional shoots, or was that more of like from the hip, office tour kind of videos?
A bit of both, actually. So
yeah, I mean,
a couple of times.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm very curious how much effort and resources go into each of these shows, because the way I see it is this is basically stealing money from game development.
Okay, so my experience with the camera work and whatnot. This was back during the Wingman's Hangar days.
Oh, okay.
Back
Very
when
different.
Michael Moreland was running stuff. So I mean, like, that production was pretty shoestring and planned out well in advance. Sort of like, hey, this week, at South by Southwest, they're showing they're showing off the telescope. I'd like to get some B-roll footage. Bootcha, would you like to come out and offer assistance? I'd be like, hell yeah, sure. Anything I can do to help. So,
okay. So you're not like I don't want to say, I mean, you're not in the studio manning the $3,000 camera for the thing that's been planned.
Oh, no, definitely not the LA stuff that they got set up. I mean,
Now, Wingman's
that
Hangar,
is
was that even done with Chris's approval, or?
I think it was. So the Wingman's Hangar thing actually kind of stemmed from the first 24-hour end of crowdfunding thing.
Okay.
So if you remember, Eric Peterson was off in a little side office with his own little camera, talking about his experiences, back in the past with Wing Commander and whatnot. So Eric was like playing to his own audience, and a lot of people actually latched onto that. So one of the later stretch goals that was, pretty much thought up on the seat of our pants was sort of like, hey, they like Eric, and Eric has training in TV and radio. I think he had a degree in broadcasting, I believe, from not UT, from somewhere else. But I mean, you remember like Wingman, like on the Wingman's Hangar. I mean, like, yes, there were some cringy moments, but delivery and presentation was not one of those cringy things.
Okay, well,
No,
I was hoping to get some kind of insight, or I know you probably can't give us a number, but I'm just flabbergasted how much production value goes into these shows each week. And to be fair, they have their subscribers that are paying for this aspect, but I wonder how much they're dipping into other accounts.
Okay, so for that, it's a little bit more apparent when Wingman's Hangar moved from sort of like in the office kind of thing to the professional, the fucking airplane wing desk.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I had actually forgotten about that.
I mean, one thing about Star Citizen is you can move from topic to topic, and there's always like 5 other topics that you forgot about that are all hilarious.
I think I said the first time I was on, I've forgotten more about Star Citizen than probably most people on the subreddit even are aware of.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've gone before I was, I don't know. None of my posts seem to show up on Reddit, but I used to go on there and be like, oh, no, they talked about this thing that you're suggesting 3 years ago. So, yeah, it happens.
So,
Anyway, sorry.
So, the production of Wingman's Hangar 2.0, the updated one with the stage. So that was done in a little sound stage. Rentals for that, I mean, sort of like those kind of vary, but usually by the hour. I mean, Michael Moreland did a really good job of making sure that we're getting this done on the hour. We're ready to go. We're ready to shoot, and Eric was always ready to do this too. And so sort of like Martin Galway did a lot of the audio development from his home studio, and that is sort of the way that Michael Moreland also operated in. So like a lot of the video stuff, yes, it was done in office. There was a lot of stuff cut up, but Moreland would do a lot of stuff out of office just because he had the equipment back at his place too. So it wasn't so much in the original Wingman's Hangar stuff. But once we went on to 2.0, so obviously, the extra furniture, the extra camera work, and so you're hiring people. You're hiring people to sort of operate those cameras. I mean, Mike Moreland does a lot, but he can't do everything. So I would probably say there's at least 3 additional helping hands on the behind the camera stuff. So like making sure the audio is rolling, making sure everything's going, making sure that the footage is rolling in as well. Michael's directing, getting ready for cuts, directing the guys. And so usually those kind of shoots usually ranged about 2 to 3 hours, 3 hours at the most. So we're looking at it like a studio rental time. Usually that kind of runs about, usually $2 to $4 grand, maybe. I mean, not bad. I mean, sort of like $2 to $4 grand on the upper end, but I would probably actually say that's probably closer to $1 grand just for like a studio rental for that.
Okay, I want to kind of put my own 2 cents in on that, because thank you for that. That was actually very well spoken there, Bootcha. I was curious as to the underlyings of that. Thank you for bringing that out. One thing about the Kickstarter, and I keep going back to that because when I purchased my package and upgraded, as probably a few of you have, is at no time, at nowhere on the website, on the Kickstarter, on the YouTube videos, did I ever see that they were going to be diverting resources for things of this nature. All right. So to me, again, this goes back on the poor stewardship of the money. Because excuse me.
Sorry.
This is a poor allocation of resources, because while you're saying this only takes a couple of hours to actually physically perform, one of the things you are severely neglecting is the cognitive load that it's placing on each and every person. Mm-hmm. And that interferes with the way that they function towards developing this game that we fucking paid for.
Well, wasn't that sorry to cut you off there, but wasn't that one of their excuses for one of the last shows that they stopped, where they were like, we got to stop interviewing developers because it takes them all week to prepare to get interviewed?
I think that was Tim for the chairman. That's why they stopped it.
Is that why they stopped it?
No, it was a different one.
It definitely had something to do with actually interviewing the guys making the spaceships, which is why I think they switched to the shipyard format that they have now, where Jared just talks a shitload and then like 1 or 2 guys come. But they used to go, do you remember they used to go actually sit down with the guy and have him like walk through the white box build and shit?
Was it Ship Shape or something like that?
I forget what it was called.
I don't know. They've had so many different fucking shows, but I distinctly remember there being they came out and they were like, hey, look, it's just taking too resources out of our developers to go interview all these guys from every department every week, and so we're not going to do it anymore.
You know what?
Like, yeah.
This is going to be headcanon for me. That show that took up all the resources for headcanon for me, that was Sandy Gardner's Flight School.
Sandy Gardner's what even was that? What was it? Was that a thing?
Yes, it was a thing.
How many years ago?
Oh, this
More than
was
2.
I want to say like 2.5 years ago. So like one of the big lead ups to like 3.0 was like this was sort of like, you know, Sandy Gardner and Ben Lessick are still the figureheads, the front facing people.
Okay.
And I guess to make Sandy Gardner appear more approachable and
More like a human
accessible,
being. You can just
more like
say
a
it.
human being. And also to make Sandy sort of like a legitimate gamer, at least for credibility wise, to sit her down and sort of like put her through flight school to I guess ostensibly showed like a tutorial in the shape of a game show thing.
Was it?
Go ahead.
Was she playing Star Citizen? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Hold on. So they put the most unlikable person in their entire office on camera playing the worst space game in the world. How long was this segment? It couldn't have been long, right?
I think it was only four segments long. If you remember, like somewhere in the back of your head, you've seen this. It was it was the Star Wars. It was.
Oh my God! They had one of the developers, like one of the actual mechanics developers, sitting there showing her how to fly it. I do remember that.
Yes,
Holy fuck!
And one of the lead-ins was like the lightsaber training probe thing from A New Hope.
Yeah.
And so that was the lead into it.
Yeah, Brawlin Badger in chat just reminded me. He said, "Do you remember the Christmas stream where she was playing against Ben, and she was blaming the joystick and getting all bitchy with Ben?" I remember that now.
Is this still on YouTube? Because I've never seen that.
I hope it is. Virtual Captain, you know what you need to do. You need to archive this.
Oh Jesus, I feel so much worse now.
So my head canon now. The most resource intensive show was Sandy Gardner's Flight School.
Trying to teach her how to play the fucking game.
That was only four segments.
Oh my God. I had completely 100% blocked that out of my memory.
So
it was gone.
Speaking of Ben, we're about 30 minutes in here, and we can do a second episode, but we're going to go for about an hour. Since we're at the halfway mark, do you have a conspiracy, or do you know what Ben's up to this week, Beet?
Do I listen, first of all, I never know what Ben's up to, all right? He's got tentacles reaching across the globe. But actually, no, I actually don't have any conspiracy theories this week. It's been remarkably quiet in Star Citizen land this week.
All right.
And I got nothing. I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to carry you this time. I specifically sent you my conspiracy theory. Let's see if I can find it here. It was about Aaron.
I mean, if I
what
were
about
really
you, Dapper?
Okay, I found it. So, the other week we had... Oh, God. Discord just jumped to some other section.
If you were really pressing me for it, I'd say that Ben was probably behind all the squirrels that are digging up my new grass in my backyard. But I mean, that's about as crazy as I can get there.
Okay, well, you're just gonna have to tune in next time, guys, to get the conspiracy theories. But that was a big draw, man.
It can't all be because you gotta drip feed them, right? You gotta keep everybody coming back. Is there gonna be one this week? It's sort of like how they show off a ship every couple weeks on ATV, because it's the only reason anybody watches those goddamn things is to see a shiny spaceship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the conspiracy thing, you just do once every couple episodes, just keep people coming back. You got to keep them hungry.
Okay.
No, I mean, like Dapper might have conspiracy theory. Why don't we ask him?
You got anything for us? You know who's pulling the strings behind Chris?
Or do you have like a deep dark secret?
I think that I think Chris Roberts is in steady and constant communication with Derek Smart.
Ooh,
He's playing both sides of the coin.
You're saying we all just got puppet bastard.
pretty much.
God
And
damn.
I guess for me, my new conspiracy theory for this episode is Cohen had a fourth client,
Oh,
Chris Roberts.
Ortwin, obviously. Come on now.
Ortwin.
No,
Cohen's-
no,
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know-
sure, Ortwin.
One fixer to sniff out another one.
oh yeah.
Ortwin's got some. Ortwin, all seriously, all conspiracy theories aside, look at Ortwin's face and tell me that dude doesn't have some fucking baggage. Like, that guy has seen where the bodies are buried for sure.
Oh, he's had
Oh
to make his
my
bones
God.
by putting one there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to pull
We've
the
all
audio.
seen the mobster movies. Come on now.
I'm gonna have to pull some of the audio off of Twitch because I forgot to hit start record. What is going on?
Oh, all right. Well, I mean,
Terrible person.
I remember. I actually remember every single word I've said so far. So if we want to just go right back,
No,
to
we're
the
good.
beginning
I
and
could pull
do
it off
this-
of Twitch.
Do this all from the beginning again.
Right.
I can go right back.
Now we're good. I could pull it off of Twitch.
Okay.
Oh,
So I guess
So I
okay.
just wanted to do a little self-promotion. Today is the 1-year anniversary of this website I made called Star Citizen Tracker. And, you know, in the very beginning... Yeah, thank you guys. In the
I should've
beginning...
clapped right there.
In the beginning, I was very agnostic towards the project, or trying to be fair to both sides, and that didn't last a whole too long because I'm all the way towards the, I'd say heretic. I didn't complete the heretic hero class, but I'm all the way towards pretty much the hater side class. And for anybody who hasn't seen Gorf's cool chart of Star Citizen voices behind the controversy, you need to check that out. It goes from trolls who are just kind of playing the metagame, which I guess we're kind of doing here. Haters,
That's me for sure.
yeah, haters that, you know,
Well-
kind of outright just look for problems in the project. Heretics that are, you know, once believers that kind of turned against the project. Skeptics
I
that
flip between those two.
I'm just going to read through all of them in case people haven't seen it or they're watching a long time from now where it's hard to find. Skeptics who doubt the project will succeed to the extent believers want it to, but allow that it might succeed in some ways. Agnostics that are totally in the center that let the whole project go either way. And then we get into believers that kind of believe in the project every day and, you know, are willing to call it the company out when they make mistakes. Then you've got the evangelists, which kind of go online and try to convert people to backing the project. Then you got your zealots that are just completely can see no wrong in the project, and all the way to the shills, which are like paid to believe in the project, or the people that maybe are online streaming the game because there's a monetary incentive. And that's it. I'll link it in Twitch chat, but definitely check that out. It's helped me a lot in navigating my evolving motivations and feelings on the project.
The thing I've always found out about motivations and emotions is that there's always more and it's always worse.
Well, that would explain while I'm veering down towards the left.
Your emotions get worse.
Well, here's the thing. Take your emotions completely out of it and write it down on paper as, say, you were the one in charge of this project. Look at something like Star Citizen Tracker. And not only did I think it had something close to around 200 or something or so goals when it started, and now it's well over 500
Mhm.
plus. Okay, it's only a year old. How does this happen? Even in the most train wreck of projects would a board or a higher up or a partner, would they step in and say, no, you're no good for this?
I agree with you, but to
This
explain the
man-
number jump from 217, I believe, to whatever it is now,
That's technical
mostly it's been
debt.
just like research because, we just started off with some Wikia list.
We're working with what we got, right?
And then went through and watched scanned the 10 for the chairmans and built up the list from there. So most of it's backlogged, but I'd say recently, yeah, they've been talking more and more stuff. I mean, just the other week they talked about some of the newer stuff they've talked about is fuel scooping, character DNA
Jesus.
blending, tractor
Denied
beaming
access
other
on the fuel
players.
thing.
I mean, this is like new stuff that just came out this year. NPCs have their own lifestyles. This is like new stuff that they've never talked about before.
Yeah, none of this had any bearing on my space game.
Yeah. Well, and part of it too is it's hard to break down because for example, the fuel scooping thing is a great example because fuel scooping has been just sort of the vague notion of fuel scooping has been listed as being something upcoming for kind of a long time, and it's that same Star Citizen story that we get over and over and over again, where you go, okay, so they're the most open development company, in the world. Tell me how this mechanic is going to work, and you can't.
They
Nobody
don't have a
can.
single mechanic.
Because
they don't have a single
Right.
mechanic.
So
Not
fuel
one.
scooping, we all have sort of been assuming has been vaguely, similar to how it's done in other games where you go scoop fuel and you have specific, there you can build your ship out to carry fuel and go give it to other guys or sell it or whatever. And what they just came out with, I don't know if any of you all have looked closely at it, but what they just came out with is literally insane. Just that in and of itself could be an entire game, and it wouldn't be fun because of the way that they've described it, the way that they've designed it. And ultimately, the real killer for the whole thing is not only are their proposed fuel mechanics incredibly complex and unfun, but they're all almost completely unnecessary because of two factors that go into it. The first is that almost every ship will be able to scoop enough fuel just from flying around to continue flying around. So there's almost no use for things like a Starfarer, which they're selling now for $350 or $400 or whatever it is. And the second part is quantum fuel, the stuff that you use to jump to make warp jumps or whatever. In between, not necessarily in between systems, but between in-system locations, can only be refueled by stopping at an actual NPC gas station. So there is no reason, A, to have really complex fuel mechanics, and B, to even bother having a fuel-centric ship.
It reminds me the whole mechanic was drawn out sort of like, the material goes in here, then gets converted, then refined, then filtered, and then put in the thing. It was like looking at like a diagram for like the Incredible Machine series.
Mm-hmm. And the important thing to note about that is that of all of those, and this is really critically important from a gameplay perspective, of all of those steps that you just listed, the player only interacts with one of them. The fuel being refined, the fuel getting stored, the fuel doing all of that is all behind the scenes. So there's no reason to even have it. You drive your spaceship into the cloud of gas in space, and it makes you fuel. That's as much as you need to know, and there's no real reason to extend beyond that, with the exception of if you're later upgrading your ship, maybe getting a more efficient, whatever machine to turn space gas into fuel. But that's all you have to say. But instead, they've made it overly complex, and I have a pet theory that it is a direct result of the very strong kickback, the very strong criticism they got on their scanning mechanics that they proposed, which was literally just a golf swing. Correct. And I think what happened is everybody said, a golf swing? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you out of your goddamn minds? And so they were like, oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, so for fuel, what if we have 8 different kinds of fuel and some of it's more efficient, but some of it isn't, but then you can't find it anywhere. And so they did what they do to the spaceships. They threw fucking greebles at the wall, and whatever stuck, they were like, that's the model. That's the model now. So
can we talk like mini games in Star Citizen for a second? So obviously,
My favorite example would be mining. I mean, it's like Bootcha said, it's an entire game within a game as far as they've written this document 3+ years ago.
Yeah, I mean, another look into the Star Citizen development from my end. So, at a certain point, I've been trying to design my own game for about 5 years, and I really suck at it. I mean, I'm terrible at programming, and my ideas for game design usually don't survive anything outside of like just a quick play test. It's just like, nope, this is all screwed. So, keeping that in mind, one of the things I did during about year 1.5 was I wanted to give an idea of a mini game for repairing ships, and sort of the idea was, again, I'm doing the Chris Roberts thing. I'm looking to a movie for inspiration, and one of the things that came out immediately was Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, when Han Solo is repairing the Millennium Falcon and all that. Turns out Roberts really loves that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so anything that has to do with Star Wars, anything that has to do with Empire Strikes Back, ideas from that, Roberts really likes those. And so my idea was to sort of like have this mini game designed out, sort of like, okay, you can spend as much time as you want repairing your ship for a discounted price doing these mini games. However, you can always have an option to say, screw it, this is taking too much time, repair all, zip, 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 it's done.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, so like I was getting into sort of like the whole thing of like soldering circuit boards, like having like an electrical fire flare up every so often. You just put out just sort of like little mini stuff that you understand. Yes, this is a mini game. I am doing stupid stuff. I'm only doing this to save a little bit of time, or I'm not saving time at all. I'm saving money,
or because you like it, because that's your thing.
Yeah, and so that's what I came up with, and I never got a word back from it. So there is at least one design document within CIG that is collecting dust.
At least that's pretty generous.
I could point to 3 right off the bat. Mining, ship repair, like you were just talking about. There's a pretty interesting page that has not been started at all. And
I can't believe I'm sorry. I have to cut everybody off at this point because we've been talking about mini games in Star Citizen for, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes now, and not one person has brought up that on your passenger spaceship you're going to have to go.
Mixmaster, baby.
No, not even that. We're even dumber than that, motherfucker. I'm going way deep. You're gonna have to go physically switch out the videotapes for your passengers to watch.
Oh my god.
Y'all don't remember that shit, do you?
I remember that, yeah.
I'm looking at the page right now. I don't remember videotapes. I just remember server blades.
You have to switch out the VCR tapes.
Yeah, you have to go back. You have a big server rack in the back of your Space 747, and if your passenger wants to watch the space news, you have to go put the space news tape into the VCR for him. Come on. Like, how, at what point when you're reading this as a backer, as somebody who's sitting on Reddit going, those fucking goons, they're just full of shit, they're lying. Like, my face is literally in my hands right now. At what point do you read that and go like, you know what? I think Sig might just be fucking with us. Like, come on.
That's one thing is, I can understand being duped by these guys for a year or two. And these pages look great. But we're moving on year 6 or 7 now, depending on how you want to, how much you want to fold yourself into a pretzel. I mean, at one point, our backer's going to say, okay, this is, we've got a buggy tech demo here. Where's the game that we were promised 5 years ago? And I'm sorry to use the word promise. I mean, I've learned in my work on this page that that is a very verboten word. CIG didn't promise you anything. You donated. Use the word promise. I mean, whoa.
No, you know what? I want to push back on that just for a second because I again, my main interaction with the thing, I unfortunately I don't have the background knowledge of Bootcha or the unique. I'm going to call it unique reading ability to go track every promise they've ever made of Virtual Captain. I inhabit same sort of niche as Dapper Don, where my main contribution here is making people insanely mad about Star Citizen on the internet. And the one that I get a lot is, it was never a promise. They never promised you anything. And in certain small cases, that may be true. You might, you can argue, oh, he said we're going to try and have it out here. We're going to try and, do this and that and the other thing. But that's all very, very much a slippery slope, because you can then walk that all the way back and say, well, he never really even promised you a game. He said he was going to try and make one. And so I call bullshit on the whole, it was never a promise thing, because you're on their online store, you're buying a thing. It doesn't matter how they couch the language. There is an implicit transaction happening there.
Right.
There just is.
I mean, I would agree to a certain extent. I mean, I think I made the statement in the last episode. I would probably say everything that was in the stretch goals up until 65 million, all that is in stone. I mean, that is the tablets that Moses brings down. Those are the laws that Star Citizen that you have to abide by. And like everything else, you can kind of argue as sort of sure, we talked about it, but can you hold us to that promise? Not really.
I think it's
a shitty way to do business.
It's disingenuous. It's disingenuous to look at the things that Chris Roberts says when he's on stage, and when he then turns around and fails to deliver those things, and fails in a spectacular way. I think it's incredibly disingenuous of people to say, well, it wasn't a promise. It might be technically correct, perhaps, in some cases. In other cases, not so much. Like when he said, we're going to have this out by the end of the year. This is our big, he literally said, this is our big end of the year patch. So, we're working really hard on it. So I think when you start splitting those hairs, you're doing it and you're saying, well, it wasn't a promise. Don't call it a promise. You're doing it from a point of not being intellectually or academically honest. And so that's my big issue with the it wasn't a promise thing.
True. Yes.
Okay, I mean, it's sort of like I guess we're crossing a little bit on like the contextual sort of like what has CIG promised to put in the game as opposed to what milestones have CIG promised to deliver this year. So I mean, like, yes, we can talk about those promises, sort of like was procedural birds a promise? I mean, or was Sadaball, was that an actual promise?
Yeah, I will.
Oh man, why'd you bring?
I'll grant you some leeway on some of the weird one-off stuff that he said one time on 10 for the Chairman and forgot about immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
But things like Sadaball, Sadaball, for example, I would say, no, that absolutely was. I mean, they showed us Sadaball. They had entire write-ups on how it was going to work. It was a huge selling point for the Star Marine patch. And yeah, I'm sorry you had to throw all that work out because you're terrible at managing, but that's still something that you said you were going to deliver and you have not done.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I guess sort of like actually sort of to tie this back into the earlier conversation about the mismanagement of funds and whatnot. A point I wanted to sort of make is it's not about mismanaging resources. It is about expanding resources to go after the stupidest little thing. I mean, it's not a case of like, oh, you're working on a ship. No, go work on this. It's a case of, oh, shit, we don't have enough people to work on this. Hire somebody else. Expansion.
Exactly. This is and to his detriment. Okay, let's go back to that real hokey video where he was supposed to be on his little super chariot or whatever with Sandy and the baby and the dog and baby Jesus and everything.
The 48-hour push, yes. I remember.
Yeah, and and he was trying to act all tough guy, military.
He was trying to be Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah, and it was just okay. That game right there. All right, I'll forgive him the cheesiness, whatever. But that game right there, that he was. Hey, it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Every time you heard something from him, it's right around the corner. And here it is. Here's this nice video. All right, he bullshotted everyone to death.
Mm-hmm.
That's why your numbers are failing. He's got nothing left to offer. There's no more videos. It's no more of that. There's no more hype. It's all right. You've promised all of this, and you're delivering pennies on the dollar.
A funny thing that you bring up about that 48-hour push video. The one quote that I remember most was a lot of web developers gave their lives. Yeah.
I remember that.
There is more to that story, but not for today. But there's more to that story.
Is that going to be covered in your Sunk Cost Galaxy series?
Yes, it will be actually, but I can talk about it a little bit more without spoiling that.
All right. Well, we'll have to tune in to your show, to your series there to hear it, the end of it.
Yeah.
Guys, we're coming up here on the top of the hour, so what I'm thinking is let's end this episode, and Twitch chat, don't worry, we will continue with the next episode. It just makes it easier for me so that I don't have to wrangle MP3s too hard. So why don't you guys give your outros? I'm your virtual captain, and I'm reminding you to sit back and enjoy the train wreck.
All right, I'm Beet Wagon, and I'm reminding you, hey, just don't get so mad about video games on the internet. I'm just having a laugh.
And I'm Bootcha, and reminding you to spay and neuter your pets.
I'm Dapper Don. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.